Okay, we're officially started. So I'm going to get started. People can still jump in. I just want to thank everyone for last week. The Q&A was super successful. I'm going to do that once a month because that's when you all get to ask your questions and someone else also has the same question. And it never hurts to hear something more than once because you're like, oh yeah, I totally forgot. And then tonight, what I wanted to talk about, oh, that's what I was saying. Use the chat to ask any questions you want, make a comment, share something. If you want to raise your hand and ask a question, feel free, because I always want, I don't want to say something and bypass or leave somebody confused. So I'm not offended if you just want to like ask me a question in the moment. And then this week, what I want to talk about is saying no. Okay, because we've had a lot of families lately who are being pressured in different ways. And there's so many times that you as the parent can say no. Okay, you can say, no, that's not behavioral. That is due to their disability, their lack of access to sound, their autism, their sensory needs. It's not a behavioral choice. It's in the brain or in the body or internal, or how are we not giving them access where it's coming out as a behavior? Because every behavior is communication, whole nother topic. But you can say, no, I don't believe that's a behavioral choice. Let's make sure the IEP is being implemented. Or no, I can't meet on that date. I know you're saying this is the date, but what they're supposed to be saying is this is the invitation. This is the date we're inviting you. And then you look at the date, you look at are all the team members available? Do you have time to be prepared? And then you have an option on that notice of meeting to say, yes, this date works for me, or no, it doesn't, let's find another day. So you could say no to the date, and it has to be a mutually agreeable time for everyone. And remember, first topic I ever talked about, you are equal members of this team. You can say no. Okay, here's one thing. I would not say no to an assessment, and we'll talk about assessments. You always want to allow them to assess because it looks bad if you end up in due process or some kind of disagreement if you denied them an opportunity to assess first. But you can say no to the results of that assessment. You can say, no, I disagree. No, that didn't happen. I have a family who said, no, I didn't help you with the assessment. No, I wasn't your translator, which was put in the report. No, that's not the date of the surgery. No, we didn't. Whatever it is, you have a right to say, no, that's not true, or no, I don't agree. The district has the right to assess, but if you disagree with the assessment, you're not stuck. You're not stuck there. You can say, I don't think that's an accurate reflection of my child. And that's when you ask for what's called an independent educational evaluation. And Emerinder, I'm not as familiar with law in Canada, so I will, this is federal law, but I do know there are special ed laws in almost every country, because as I started the SPED talks and everything, I kind of researched it. And we're not the only, sorry, I'm letting someone in. We're not the only country with special ed laws, but I know that we are allowed to say, I disagree with this assessment. I disagree it's accurate, and ask for an independent evaluation. You can also disagree with the proposed goals. It's not, this is, and the progress. This is, we're done with this goal. This is what I'm going to do this year, and I'm going to reduce my services because X, Y, Z. You can say you're proposing these goals and you're proposing to reduce your services. But no, I think what you're doing is great. And he's making progress because of the services and the minutes you're giving. So no, I'm not in agreement at this time for that change. Do you see how much power you have? Like Gina said, the power of no. You have, as parents and as equal members of these teams, the power to say, no, I disagree with that. In so many parts of the IEP process, not just the IEP document, but the IEP process. I want to stop for a minute and make sure that I'm not like going too fast or speeding through topics. Does anyone want me to go deeper into a specific place where you can say no, or just keep going? Keep going, thumbs up, or okay. So you can also say no, for instance, if you walk into a parent-teacher conference and it's an IEP team and you had no idea it was going to be an IEP meeting. You can say, whoa, hold on. For it to be an IEP, I should have been given notice. I should have signed that notice. I should be prepared. So we're going to go ahead and cancel this conference. Don't let them pressure you. Well, we're all here now. Can we just talk? Or as one district said to one of my families, oh no, it's not a real IEP, but you asked for a meeting, so I just have to do it through the IEP process, but literally told mom in writing, it's not a real IEP. Yes, it is. If you receive a notice of meeting, it will be an IEP amendment. It will be an IEP. And if you just wanted a parent-teacher conference and they're bringing the team together, you have a right to say, actually, you know, I would never disagree with a meeting, but that's not what I asked for. We're going to have to reschedule. No. And if you disagree with, let's say, the denial of a service. So I said, if they want to reduce the service, you can say no and keep it. What if you ask for a specific service, like deaf and hard of hearing, or auditory verbal therapy, or occupational therapy, or speech, or a one-to-one aid, and they say no? You can also say no to that. You can say no to the no, one of my favorite topics. You can say no to the no. And there are the next steps of resolution. You don't have to be afraid that, well, they just need something, or they just need to get into school, or they said they won't work on the goals until I sign. You can sign in partial agreement and partial disagreement. You can consent to the parts you agree with, and you can say no respectfully and politely to the parts that you disagree with. Gina has a question. Unmute. Let's find out.
Well, it's more like a comment. Hello, everyone. My apologies that I'm not on camera. But I just think that this is really important because, you know, I've seen, including myself, just this angst that happens when the school district is like giving you direction in the process, especially during IEPs. Like, for example, I moved into a different district, and I notified the school district that I had a child with a disability and that we're now in their school district. And so I didn't hear from this particular school district for almost like 6 months. We, you know, tried to contact them a few times, but no response. And then finally they were like, yeah, come on in after 6 months of no response. Come on in tomorrow. And so I felt pressured to go in to a meeting that I didn't know anyone, because I was just so anxious to get the services started, to get the process started. But I think that this is so important because as a parent, we always feel like, oh, well, I don't want to mess things up with the school district. I got to follow everything that they say. But it's not like you're being combative. It's just more so being collaborative and letting them know that you're an equal part, like Melinda, you said, you're equal part of the team, and that people, you know your child best. So I think that this is really good. So thank you for sharing this today.
Absolutely. Do you mind if I share another snippet of what happened next?
No, please. I appreciate you sharing. I'm an open book.
So Gina gets this, hey, come on down. And that feels like, let's chat, let's serve your child. We're so sorry, you're around the corner, come on in. But what happened is she went on down and it was turned into an IEP meeting without me, without knowing that's what was going to happen. I've got so many families who've had that happen. They went in to talk to the administrator and they didn't even know they had had an IEP meeting until I got the records. They said, oh, we had a meeting and we didn't agree. So then we had this chat with the director. But when I got the records, every one of those chats was an IEP meeting with an insufficient team. They didn't have all the team members, but they still kind of tricked the families into attending, not knowing this will be an IEP and that they are expected to sign, which then starts to look less favorable. Let's say if we're going to end up in mediation or something trying to resolve it, well, the parents agreed, the parents came, the parents said this, when what they thought they were doing was having a friendly, collaborative meeting with their administrator to help their child. And I even had this happen with my daughter. And, like I've been doing this for a long time. And we were, I think I told you, the first ones in our town to choose oral deaf education, the first ones in our town to have a cochlear implant. Every meeting is, you've never had a kid like mine before. This is individualized. I don't care what the other families of kids with DHH kids have done. Let's talk about my child. Now we're in 9th grade and she's being, I would call it abused by the DHH teacher who's failing to implement the IEP, signing to my daughter who advocated for herself and said, my daughter said, please stop signing to me. I can hear you. I can talk. And the DHH teacher said, we're not doing your mother's IEP here. Yeah, I still know that every Wednesday in 9th grade, my daughter came home in tears. That's how deep that goes. So I pulled her and they're like, come on in, let's chat. So I went on into chat and I walk into this room thinking I'm just going to talk to a couple people and the whole team is there. Oh, and by the way, we also were trying to get CART, which I'll do a whole talk on it if y'all want me to. We were trying to get CART, which is captions in the classroom, and they had given her something subpar. But because I wanted to get along, I said yes. I said yes to this subpar captioning service. And this woman who was her captionist was actually punishing her. She was sending my daughter to the office. And another reason I pulled her, my daughter was saying, I can hear people talking and my screen is blank, and looking at the woman like my screen is blank and getting sent to the office for disrespect. So I walk into this meeting that they have a whole team there and the director, and I had my daughter with me and I turned around and walked out. I was like, I'm not doing this meeting. I did do the meeting because ultimately I said, if you'll let me record it with no notice, I'm going to record this meeting, I'll stay. So we pressed record and I started talking about these problems, and I talked about this issue with the typing service that was not real CART. And I said, go ahead, Krista, talk for yourself. So she said, I can hear people talking, my teacher's talking, and my screen is blank. This person who was my daughter's captionist or whatever she was, because it wasn't real CART, said she was taking names down of kids who were texting in class. And then she said that she wasn't going to type everything because some of the kids were cussing. And I looked right at the audiologist and the director and I said, if the hearing kids hear the cuss word, my kid gets to see it and the teacher needs to manage the classroom. So you all have the power to say no. Like, do I want her to hear kids cussing? No, but if everyone else hears it, then the teacher has to manage the classroom and my kid's going to read what everyone else is hearing. That just has to happen. No, you can't censor her education. No, you can't punish her when she advocates for herself. No, you can't sign to her just because you believe in it and you want to violate the IEP. No, this is not okay. You are the parents and you have the right to say no. And it's scary. It's scary because these are the people who are helping your child and you're going to leave them alone at school. And how are they going to treat them if they don't like you? I get it. I spent so many years wanting them to like me so they'd be nice to her. But at some point, we just have to know that we're our child's best advocate. Those teachers are not sitting around their Thanksgiving dinner table thinking about us or our kids. They're with their family. So we have to be the ones to say respectfully and collaboratively, no, we need to come up with a different solution. Or no, I don't agree with this conclusion of a report. Or no, that goal is too low. Does that make sense? Okay, good. I don't know, everyone's camera isn't on. So those who are, if I get the thumbs up, I know we're good. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to ask a specific, how do I say no to something? And nothing, everybody knows.
Melinda, I was just gonna say that I said no this week.
Good.
I got an email, and whatever the email said, I said no. That was my first line. And usually I'm like, good morning, I hope your day is going well, blah, blah, blah. It was no. And then why? And then finally, the district person emailed me with the same response to what I said no to, but it's not that I'm not talking to like this echelon. I'm now at this echelon with the same response.
But you know what? That's good. Okay, so everybody who hasn't said no, here's what's going to happen. You're talking to the classroom teacher or the case manager. They're either telling you what they've been told to say or all they know, because this is what everyone says yes to, or they have an ignorance about your child's eligibility, or they don't realize that there's also a sensory need, or they're giving you what they know at the moment or what they've been told to say. And I'm telling you, it's one or the other. It's either all they know and they're giving their best, or they've been told to say it and they can't say anything else. So here's the thing to know. If you say yes, their life goes on. Your life doesn't get better. Your kid doesn't get what they need, but their life goes on. You've said yes, on to the next one. If you say no, it just goes to the next level. But you don't want to just say no verbally or refuse to sign, or, you got to say no in writing. Like Amarinder said no in an email, and it went up to the next decision maker. Because that teacher, you just capped off. That teacher has nothing else to say because you've said no, and this is why. And if you say no and why, and you have a solution, you're not being combative, you're being collaborative, but you're not saying yes or feeling pushed into something that you don't agree with. Does that make sense? Thumbs up? No? Cool. Has anyone else said no to something that they would want to share? You don't feel pressured to share. This is a safe space, but does anyone else want to either share or ask?
I have a question, I guess.
Cool.
So we had our initial IEP, and the school district offered AVT, which we wanted, but they're also offering speech services, and I'm like afraid to say no, because I'm like, well, the more help, the better. And John Tracy Center thinks that she needs articulation, and their SLPs, know how to work with kids with hearing loss. So should I add that, or should I ask for that? And I'm just totally paralyzed. So.
Okay, two things. Great question. And thank you for sharing that you're paralyzed and scared to say no. Thank you, because you're not the only one. I feel so strongly about this, and I know you're pulled in different directions. Our children, and these are open to every disability and eligibility, but pretty much everyone on here so far, their kids have hearing loss and oral. Our children have to first develop their spoken language through listening, just like their typical hearing peers, looking at their hearing age and closing that gap before they start articulation. Now, John Tracy is going to disagree with me, because they have speech therapists who know how to work on, because their speech therapists work at a school for the deaf. Weingarten WCC is going to disagree with me, because they give speech therapy, but their therapists are specialists in oral deaf. So I'm going to tell you, after, my daughter's 30 and 20 years professionally doing this, I know that speech therapy, our tick therapy undoes the work you're doing for listening and spoken language. It just does. If you are working on listening and spoken language and following the natural pathways of how does someone with normal hearing develop their language, and you're comparing to the hearing age and you're closing the gap. Okay, if they have a hearing age of 3 and they're 7 years old and they have the language of a 4 or 5-year-old, you are on fire. Have a party. They're 2 years ahead of their hearing age. You're closing the gap. I personally and professionally don't want any of my families, my kiddos, to start getting our tick therapy until their listening and listening skills have caught up. And then if there's an artic problem, if there's some reason they can't develop the SH through AVT, if there's some reason they can't produce because they have oral motor issues, if they're listening and language, they've closed the gap with receptive and expressive, and for some reason they can't produce a sound, then we can talk about artic therapy. But I'm anti-articulation. I like to call it speech production, because speech production is how are you producing the sounds. Traditional articulation is, this is where your tongue goes, look at my face, put your teeth on the bottom lip. There's so much that goes into traditional articulation therapy. And I've had so many speech therapists who've heard me talk and said, I never knew that. No one ever told me that a deaf kid can learn through listening. No one ever talked about acoustic highlighting. So you can get the difference of SK for school and ST for stool in AVT. And I know it because I lived it. I lived it with my daughter, and we took it out of the where is my tongue, or where, because T and K are inside the mouth. You cannot see T and K. You have to hear the difference. And if we stress on where they put their articulators too early, they get really tense. And I've seen kids who have beautiful speech, but they aren't processing language. I've seen kids who go, Mom, and I'm like, I know what kind of therapy she gets. I've had kids who've said, do you want me to say it like my speech therapist, or do you want me to say it like my AVT? For the same, because maybe the speech therapist is overemphasizing the S because they're working on possessive. Well, guess what? When you overemphasize the possessive S, which is a Z, by the way, it's Gina's turn. It's Amarinda's turn. It's Rachel's turn. That's not natural speech. That's overemphasizing to pick up on the possessive. So I know I'm passionate about this, Shanley. But I really think that at this young stage, you start with the listening and language. You have the experts at John Tracy. School-based speech in the district, no. Speech at John Tracy is your decision. I still think you start with your listening and spoken language, and then if there's a need, you move to speech production. Does that make sense? And as far as being scared to make them mad, look, they're going to push you until you formally say no. And the minute you say no, they're going to turn around and serve someone else. They're not going to spend a lot of time trying to talk you into it. They've made the offer. Once the no goes on paper, then they just don't do it. Even if you went to their school-based program and you say no to speech, they can't do the speech. They're going to be passionate when they offer it to you, but the minute you say no, thank you, they've got a million other kids to serve. They've got big caseloads.
And is there any chance that, I don't know much about the SLP at my school district, but her name's Jackie, but should I find out what her qualifications are, and if she works with a lot of kids with hearing loss, or just know that it's not gonna be?
In my opinion, no, because
Okay.
if she's worked with a lot of kids with hearing loss, does that mean that she understands listening and spoken language, or does that mean she's worked with a lot of kids with hearing loss?
Yeah.
A lot of people have worked with kids with hearing loss, but they're telling them where to put their tongue, and they're working in the mirror, and they're doing it like ba 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 instead of naturally.
Mhm.
And anyone else on this call who has something to share about what I'm saying, or has a different opinion, or has another question, totally fine with that. I'm open to that. And I know Amarinder has a question or a statement. But Shani Lee, are you good?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, of course. Amarinda.
Hey, thanks for asking that question. Melinda, I've never heard anyone say that before, and it's like mind-boggling because my son is 11. He has oral motor dysfunction. And we didn't know this when he was younger because he was late amplified. And so he's had a lot of articulation therapy and because of that. And his receptive understanding is so great, and yet his expressive is it's not limited anymore because we argue a lot. So I can tell you there's a lot of talking, but it's it's not limited, but it's it's affected by all of those years of therapy. And I wonder, what do you do then? Because what do you do then? I guess this is like off topic a little bit, but.
No, it's not saying no, but it's still a really good question. I would, if his speech is affected by maybe overemphasizing or overthinking about where his articulators are, I would relax. I would do some games like Battleship or Connect 4, or just things where you can both be focused on a game and use those acoustic highlighting skills that you know about, and don't correct his speech at this time. This is my opinion. If he says something wrong, feed it right. Like if he says, I want to go to stool, you can go, oh yes, we're going to have school tomorrow. You'll go to school. Just get it in a couple times auditorily. But that would be the first thing I would do. And we can talk later about some other strategies, because that's the one example with my daughter. The other thing, here's another thing with my daughter. I'll give my own example. She, for years, was calling San Diego San Danieno. So when she was younger than 11, and so she could read and she knows the sounds letters make, phonetically, I wrote San Danieno, and then phonetically, not the way it's spelled, because the way it's spelled, her brain said San Danieno out of habit. But I phonetically wrote San Danieno and San Diego. She never said it wrong again. Once she saw the phonetic, so that's another idea, is do the phonetic. So that's one thing I would do. Just if there's something to fix, you're welcome. Rachel. Hi.
Hi, Melinda.
Hi.
Yeah. I think I mentioned this with you before, like a few weeks ago. We are supposed to have AVT once our school start, but this year is different. Our AVT teacher left, and I really understand that it's really difficult for the school to find any new AVT teacher who can take over in such a short time. But it's but for us it's like a loss. It's a big loss. It's almost 3 months without AVT. I don't know, we just feel like we have to understand, but what about our loss? What can I do with this?
I love that question, because it's another place where you say no, I will not wait 2 weeks. And so I know your situation at your school, and some public schools actually document in the offer of FAPE, services will not be provided the first 2 weeks of school and the last 2 weeks of school because of provider schedules. No, that's unacceptable. There's nothing in the law that says here's the offer, but services don't have to start the first 2 weeks of school because they're getting their schedules straightened out. Personally, in those kinds of situations, your school, public school, when you're told we haven't started yet because we're working on our schedules, I would say the way I would flip the no is, okay, but there will be some compensatory time owed. The IEP said 60 minutes a week of AVT or 120 minutes a week of AVT or whatever it says. And if we went 3 weeks or 3 months without the service, then that it's owed. There's compensatory time owed. So asking for compensatory time is another way to say no. Tonight's topic. No, it's not okay that we missed this many weeks or this many sessions. And I totally understand you were hiring a new person or getting your schedules together, but no, I don't accept just losing those minutes. And if they were to put it on your, if anyone else on this call has it on that offer of fate, that services don't start in the first 2 weeks of school, then on the signature page, you can say, I agree, except I don't agree with starting services late. That's not part of IDEA. So
Yeah, but we just, yeah, sorry. Yeah, we just lost it, right? There's nothing we can do with it.
Rachel, yes, you can. You can politely and collaboratively ask when the compensatory time will be given, because this many sessions were missed and it was really important.
Right. Yes, it is very important. And I kind of feel like we are missing so much. You know, it's a 3 months. It's not like a short time.
Yeah, and we can talk about the advocacy piece of it later, but you can document that there are so many sessions missed, and if you have to go like an hour and a half until they're made up, or will they be made up in the summer, or when will these be made up? Because you're not saying I don't want any of you to say will this be made up, because you're giving them a chance to say yes or say no. I want you to say when will the time that was missed be made up, because that's a presumptive I'm gonna get what I need.
Thank you.
Okay, that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And I hope I pronounced this right. Kwan? I'm so sorry if I mispronounced it.
Hey, good afternoon, Melinda.
Hi, how are you?
Hello, everybody. Just very, very quickly, this is me, Lee. We are in the library at this moment. So yeah, forgive me for the mask. So I was digesting the information regarding the AVT versus the SLP. For Qian Qian, she is almost, well, she has 2 weeks from 3 years old, and she is still having the significant fronting issue, just as Melinda was talking about the t, k, and the d, g sounds.
Yes.
And also the possessive S is not there as clear as it should be. And so by this moment, well, so I think, yeah, I was still digesting the. I know I sense some difference, yes, but before, and also and also we try to diagonal like a kind of a probe deeper to see if that's just the sound perception, or really was the articulation issue.
So go ahead.
Yeah, but at this moment, this is already 6 weeks since the first touching of this issue, and we still have not I still do not have a clear mind yet. So I wanted to hear your insights.
Gosh, great questions. So if I heard you right, 5 to 6 weeks that you've been talking about this question of production, and she's just over 3.
She's 2 weeks from 3 years old. So she's
almost
35 and a half. Yeah. Almost 3.
Okay. You're so early. You're so early. What's the hearing age? How long has she been hearing?
Oh, she by today she has a total of 26 months of hearing age.
26 months. Okay, so almost 3 and just over 2 hearing. I want you to look at, or ask me later, maybe I'll send this to everybody. There's a chart that says what age certain sounds are expected to come in. Your SLPs are looking at that chart and your kid's chronological age. I want you to look at that chart and look at your kid's hearing age. And at 26 months, does anyone expect a 2-year-old to have a possessive S? Is the K supposed to be there for a 2-year-old? Is the K? So look at the hearing age and the sounds that are being expressed as a concern, and then go back to the listening. acoustic highlighting. You can only hear the difference between t, d, k. T, 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 d, 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 k, k, k. You can only hear it, you can't see it. Two are voiceless, one is voiced. And she's so young. I really ask you to look at that before you worry about I'm not saying there won't eventually be like, oh yeah, there needed to be some articulation. But first compare when the sound should come in.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not, if the hearing aid doesn't expect it, don't stress. Work on closing the gap.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's a very great reminder. Yeah.
And then you can
We
politely
know,
say, no, thank you. Not yet. We'll consider it later, but no, not yet.
Okay, great.
Sign language. Yeah. If anyone doesn't want sign language and you have people saying how important it is, you can say, no, thank you. It's a foreign language. And I'm saying because I sign language is beautiful. And I represent people who've chosen ASL and a bunch of different ways. But if you want your child to speak spoken language, then you can say, no, thank you. I have no problem if they want to take that as their foreign language in high school. But right now, we want them to access their education through listening and speaking. And you just say, no, thank you.
Oh, that's great reminder because we are in it right now.
Yeah, you can say, I'm not saying no forever. I'm saying no for right now. We need to work on closing the gap with the listening and spoken language. Okay, Rachel. Yeah. Don't feel bad. These are only supposed to be 30 minutes. They always go long. It's so good. It's all good. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Bye.
Bye-bye, Rachel.
But
Bye.
just to finish that one thought, if you say no to speech, you say no to sign language, you say no to something, you can say, I'm not saying no forever. I'm saying no right now. And then put it in writing and don't be bullied or pressured.
Connected the question. So I was thinking, they have the offers like blah 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 as a list. So some of them have to, some of them may come from a SLP. But I totally So AVT is for her. So
do you have AVT offered?
No, we are at this stage. We are at drafting appropriate goals. The goals can, but I wanted to clarify that we might sense some articulation issue, but that can also be helped by a AVT, right? So that won't alter.
And you have to follow the stages. So you don't want to fix something that wasn't expected to be there. You want to start with, are they hearing it? Are they producing it? Do they produce it with acoustic highlighting? Like, how are you getting there? Before you try to fix it, you have to make sure they're hearing it. So be careful with your goals because your goals drive services. So you really want to make sure those goals are all through listening. Even if it's a speech production goal, through listening, they'll produce the sound. Through listening, they'll do this and that. And then you can ask for AVT or an AVT assessment. Ask for an AVT assessment.
Yeah. Oh, and also, if you don't mind, I missed the part when you said something, and you said that John Tracy teachers or the WCC teachers might not agree. I kind of got lost in that part. Can you?
Sure, I'll say it again because I know that they would disagree and they would not be happy with what I'm saying right now because they have speech therapists in their program. But those speech therapists are specialists in oral deaf ed. So if you want to go ahead with speech at Weingarten, at John Tracy, all good. I'm not saying no to their speech. I'm just saying as long as everyone's starting with listening. I'm not saying to go say stop speech therapy because the John Tracy speech therapist, the Weingarten speech therapist, Clark School for the Deaf, I've got a hope in my heart. They all know how to work with kids with hearing loss. So they're not going to undo. But a traditional school-based speech therapist who's not a specialist in working with our kids could undo the work Weingarten's doing, John Tracy's doing, the AVTs are doing. So I'm not saying no to Weingarten and John Tracy's speech. I'm just saying be really careful of jumping to articulation before you do it through listening.
Awesome. Yeah, clarified. Thank you so much.
Thank you for asking, because that could have been really misunderstood in the world. Anybody else want to share or ask? I know it's the Friday before Thanksgiving holiday, so I'm not going to keep you all too much, but Jennifer.
Hi, thank you for taking the time to do this. I've been so confused with Caleb's case because of his secondary diagnosis. So we're in the middle of transitioning to the new school, and they were unable to get staffing because they were unable to get a behavior therapist. They were unable to get the behavior therapist until December 6th. So that's why there's a delay. So for me to be an advocate, I should say no.
Yeah, you really should say no. The offer was to this
When I
change
signed.
program, and I signed it, and you got to find it. You got to find it with an NPA agency. If you don't have someone on staff, you got to find a non-public agency. You offered it. I agreed to it. I'm not in agreement with waiting until December. We agreed to start. So again, we come back to that compensatory. We come back to that. You offered it. I said yes. No, I don't agree with waiting. He needs this now. It's urgent.
So I'm kind of kicking myself.
I love your director, but no, it's on you to find someone.
So the issue with that was if they find someone, then Caleb's gonna have too many transitions. Like he's gonna have one para educator for this 1 week, and then the following week he's gonna change and have a behavior therapist with that company that they're able to start. And then on top of that, Caleb's gonna have a whole new set of teachers. And I was looking at Caleb's best interests based on the circumstances. I decided to wait until December 6th because I want him to have a smoother transition instead of jumping from multiple people that he doesn't know.
And that's okay, because you have the reason why you're okay with it. But if you were in angst that the most important thing was for him to change programs, then you could say, no, I'm not in agreement to waiting. But you have these reasons, so it's okay. It's okay to say yes if you have these reasons, and it's what's best for your child. I just wanted tonight's topic to be, you don't have to accept something you disagree with. So Jennifer, you made a reasonable choice for Caleb's best interest. So you didn't get forced into a corner. You were like, that's too many people, that's too much change. So it's okay.
Okay.
It's okay, yeah.
With saying no, it's so hard. It's something that we should do often, but then there's all these circumstances, and then we just find reasons to make it seem okay. And I kind of felt like that's what I did, but it is, I think, to me, the best decision to help Caleb have a smoother transition.
And that's all it's about. What does your child need? What does your child need? And if you're making the decision because of what a provider needs, no, you're allowed to say no. But if it's the best thing for your child, you're not giving in. You're not losing something. Like, did you want him to start sooner? Of course you did. But if this is the best decision for your child, then it's okay. Absolutely. It's just, don't feel like you have to say yes to something that's for the provider. I hear so many families say, well, she's got a large caseload, so she can't, or they lost a lot of teachers, but they don't have bus drivers. That's, that's about not about your child. And that's when you're allowed to say no. But when it's the best thing for your child, then you aren't being forced into something.
Thank you.
Of course. And by the way, you say no beautifully. You're so calm and respectful. And you're like, okay, so I'd like the AVT. You're so good at saying politely, no, I'll go ahead and keep my AVT. Thanks. I'll see.
Can I ask? With the SLP, I did sign on for Caleb to have SLP, but this new person at the district, I don't know if she's worked with any DHH kids. So I don't know if
your situation is unique, remember. So as long as your SLP is an expert in the goals we wrote and collaborates with your AVT and DHH, we need that collaboration because you have multiple disabilities.
Right.
We don't want people working in opposite directions. But if your SLP and your DHH and your AVT collaborate, that's going to be beautiful.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. I can't see anyone else's faces. Is it? Yeah.
I was going to ask a question, but it left me. So I'm going to ask it. Just give me a couple minutes for it to come back in.
Of course, of course. And while you're like, what was my question? Let me just, oh, okay, G's phone. I don't know who G's phone is, but I see your hand.
Sorry, it's Gina. I'm in the car.
Okay.
How long is too long to keep an IEP? I had to push the meeting back, and then we set a new date, and then the administrator asked if I could change it. And then just last night, yesterday I emailed the RSP teacher, and he basically said, I can't get you your draft in time. Can I give it to you the week of the meeting, on Monday when I don't have time to look at it? And I basically said, no, you can't. I asked for those a long time ago, and he wrote in the email, oh, I can't do it under such short notice, which irritated me.
Yeah.
Because I asked for those drafts at the end of October, and now he wrote the email in such a way that it was like, oh, you're giving me such short notice. I have to confer with the teacher. There's no way I can get you those drafts.
So my style would be to say, unfortunately, I heard your first question. I will answer it. Unfortunately, it looks like we're going to have to reschedule again, because again, you're doing that so that you stay in, I want to say the power seat, but you are the parent and you have the ultimate decision. And so you have to understand everything that's going to be said. So I would say, unfortunately, it looks like we are going to have to reschedule. You're not being rude there. Just want to,
I did.
Asked in October. I hope you got that request in October. So you're like kind of going, yeah, not short notice, but politely. Just a reminder, I did ask in October. I hope you received that. And please, let's look at some dates. And then your original question about how long's too long to keep an IEP. As long as there's something to work on, all your services will stay in place. If the goals haven't been met, they can still work. If all the goals had been met like 6 months ago, I'd be like, oh yeah, we got to get this IEP because we got to get new goals. We got to get them working on the next level of skill set. But as long as your minutes are good, your services are good, there's something for them to work on. Don't stress on how long you've had it, because you want to have quality over rushing into something.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Of course. And yeah, politely say, no, we're going to have to reschedule.
I did that last night in an email, but
Good for you.
Thank goodness it was by email.
Yeah, right. I know. Itzel, I see your hand.
Oh, hi. I have a question. If I haven't signed the IUP, can I ask for compensatory hours after I sign it, or it has to be signed in order to ask for the compensatory hours?
Great question. So if it's a brand new offer, so if, and I hope I didn't cut you off, tell me if I did. Okay, if it's a brand new offer and that service has not started yet, then it doesn't have to start till you sign it. But let's say it's the same thing you had last year, the same thing is being offered. You haven't signed this year's IEP. Last year's IEP is still under stay put. So yes, there's compensatory time owed. Does that make sense to everybody? Thumbs up, thumbs down.
So if it's, just to clarify, if it's new, I cannot ask?
If it's a new service, if it's a new district, but the same service, if it's a, if it's the same service you had, so let's say let's go back to speech because that's easy. Let's say you had 60 minutes a week of speech in your last signed IEP. You had your new IEP that you haven't signed yet, but it's offering 60 minutes a week of speech. Then yes, if it hasn't been done, there's compensatory time owed. If your last offer was 60 minutes a week of speech and your new offer is 90 minutes a week, that 90 isn't owed to you till you sign it.
Oh, okay. So
does that make sense?
Yeah, it's gonna be effective until I sign, right?
But if it's just like it's a new district or it's a new school or it's a new team.
It's a new district and a new service.
Okay, then yeah, it doesn't start till you sign it.
Oh, okay, got it.
Okay, and we need
Thank you.
we need to circle back because I thought we had signed. So yeah, let's get that signed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt here. Are you talking about compensation of lost time or compensation about the service that you paid? Is that time-wise or money-wise?
Right. We've been talking about time offered in the IEP of a service that wasn't given. So earlier someone was talking about AVT being in the IEP, but it took 3 weeks or 3 months to start. That's service that's owed, compensatory service. There's something called compensation, like reimbursement if you go to due process or you reach a settlement agreement. If you paid out of pocket something that they owed, that's compensatory too, but that wasn't what we were talking about.
Gotcha.
Okay. Danielle, did you remember?
No, I'm listening so much. I have a lot of background noise going on and just behavior over here. And that my thoughts are not, I'm like thinking about Gage and thinking about his specific situation, and I don't want to take everyone's time asking about something that may not be super like relevant to them. So I'm listening, and what I will do is when we have these like open forums like we did on the last time, I'm going to be prepared and just write down all my questions that are just, they can be all over the place about all kinds of different things, and then have them.
And let me just say, you can say no to too many people bombarding your child at once. You can say no to being pressured to finish an assessment in one day when your child needs 2. You can say no, like we got to stop now. We got to finish later. I'm just saying that to you because a lot of families need to hear that.
All of that happened to me.
Yeah, and you're done, but that pressure to, well, we're so busy, it's such a big team, it's hard to get them together. Well, this is about your child. It's not about everyone else's schedule. So yeah, it does take a lot to get a big team together, but it doesn't mean you have to be pressured into something that's uncomfortable or doesn't work for you.
Well, none of it works for me.
I know.
Absolutely, this much of it works for me. 0.
I know.
I don't think there was any way to make it comfortable, and I what is the lady's name? Jennifer, you were at JTC today. She does have a very eloquent way of politely saying no, but I don't. And I can't risk ruining people's like willingness to work with me because I'm unable to mute my emotions.
We got you. So ask any question and don't feel like you're derailing the group in these SPED talks, because somebody else probably also wants to hear it or needs to hear it or didn't know they had the same question. Number two, you can always reach out anytime and ask me. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if anyone else has any questions, and please, if anything I've said tonight has you feeling confused or concerned, because I know I said some things that, you know, some people wouldn't want me to say, you know, please speak up, reach out to me privately, whatever you need to do. Because again, I'm here to be of service. That's all I want to do is be of service. But
yeah, so I hope, let me still fit in for something that has been in my mind for forever.
okay.
It's like my little one, so she has the cochlear implants for both ears.
Okay.
Now, yeah, and then but in the past, during her hearing age, the 26 months, she's been trying really hard, and she's really talking, and she can actually talk in sentences now. So it's amazing, and then everybody is amazed about her level.
Good.
But the thing for me is that I totally know how what the magic actually worked for her to be here to at the current level. So I was wondering, Melinda, and also from your professional and your daughter's experience, how should I kind of drive the goals to sustain the support that she used in the past, like really intensive language support. That's not just that. Yeah, so I can tell I and also the teacher are inputting to her mind, to her little brain so differently from normal hearing children's parents, of course.
So a couple of things, because earlier Shani Lee said it seems like the more the better. And I like to say more of an inappropriate service isn't the best. We want, you know, quality over quantity. I don't want 3 hours a week if 2 of them aren't appropriate, just because 3 is more than 1. So I strongly believe one good appropriate service is better than more of something that's not appropriate. The other thing too is that what you want to do to look at your goals is, number one, make sure she's not imitating everything. She's speaking in sentences, she's saying these sentences. Let's make sure she's thinking language and independently creating these sentences as opposed to imitating sentences. Let's make sure that if she's independently using 2-word sentences, a year from now, we're talking about independently using 4-word, or write your goal for independently using age appropriate. Age appropriate, no one can push back on you. 4 or 5, someone's going to say research shows, and they're going to push back. But if you're looking for age appropriate sentences independently through listening alone, that's how you're going to make sure your daughter's making the appropriate progress. Because we have a lot of kids who have beautiful speech, but then if you look at them, they might be imitating. So they have beautiful speech. And if I do an assessment and I say, show me the baby, and they say, show me the baby, they're not processing the language. They're not pointing to a picture of a baby. They're just repeating what they heard. So I'd be really careful of that and look back at the independent speech production, the ability to answer questions, the ability to initiate play with peers using age-appropriate spoken language, not just walk up and parallel play with them. Oh, they have a lot of friends. She's always with friends, but is she using language to start the play? Close the gap on what typical hearing kids are doing. That's my thought.
Well, that is so beautiful. That actually, yeah, that's so beautiful. That reminded me for one thing that I just learned. I think that was connected is that she was speaking things in tongue, meaning that, oh yeah, I think that's connected to your comments just now. She was imitating and kind of taking the whole thing from other people instead of
Right. I'll tell you
kind of-
another funny story from my daughter, because my mom and sister thought I was like the worst mom ever. But she was little. She was still, I think, at John Tracy, maybe the next school, I'm not sure. But we're in the living room and she's trying to ask me for ice cream. And I knew what she meant, but she wasn't saying it appropriately. So I said, I'm sorry, I don't understand, or whatever I did. I did the AVT strategies, whatever they were. It took a while for her to ask me for this ice cream and say please and whatever. And I was like, no, we're gonna have dinner first. And my mom and sister were like, oh my God, you worked her that hard to ask you that question and you told her no. And I said, yeah, because just because she says it doesn't mean she gets it. She has to learn like other kids. You can't have ice cream before dinner. But I still wanted her to use her good speech and listen to me and stuff. So we got to remember, just because they use good speech doesn't mean they get everything they want. But they learn that in school when they're getting the kind of therapy that's just imitate, 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 reward, reward, reward. So we want them thinking and processing language and asking questions. And sometimes they might say, yeah and instead of a whole sentence. But if they processed our question, yeah and is okay, because it means they understood what we said.
yeah, gotcha. Gotcha. Thank you.
You guys have been great. And oh, Gina.
Hi again. Okay, I wanted to go back to Danielle's comment about having, like, being able, because you're passionate about your child. So yeah, sometimes it's hard to just say no or say it in a particular way that it will be received. I know I have that currently with my son's team. You know, I am so passionate about my son that sometimes it is hard to, like, maybe refute or say the no, because yeah, I do want them to be collaborative and I don't want them to become defensive. And sometimes when you say those strong no's, it can be challenging. But I just wanted to, I think this is still a good reminder that even if you have to do it with a friend or get it in writing in an email to articulate your thoughts. Because sometimes I do agree with Danielle, sometimes it is very difficult because you still want to have that collaboration with the team, and so that they don't shut down and they don't provide good care for your kid. So I just wanted to make that comment.
I agree with that completely. And Danielle and Gina and anyone else who is, well, I was afraid to say no because I just hate confrontation. Some people are afraid to say no because they can't help but let the mama bear out. Whatever the reason is, you can always, and you should always, say no in writing. And if you say no in writing, brain dump, do not send to anyone but me or your best friend. Get it all out there, sleep, because now you got it out of your head. Then you can read it, or I can clean it up, or your friend can clean it up, or someone can like tweak it a little bit. Like you got all your thoughts out, but you didn't necessarily say it to them. And then we still say no. We say no, but if we say it in writing, then we do our best to not offend. And you know what, in the end, again, I don't want to offend anyone. But I also don't care in the end. I've had so many years of trying not to offend teachers that if they're not giving your child what they need, or they're not understanding what you're asking for, or they're not the right person, it's nothing personal. It just is what it is. You don't have to care. They are not the one putting your kid to bed. They are not the one giving your kid a bath. They are not the one thinking about how are they going to succeed next year. They're not the one who's helping them when they accidentally offend a friend, or they screw up on a play date, or they don't know how to play with someone at the park. You are. So as much as they're the professionals, who cares what they think of you in the end? You're the mom, you're the dad. I want to work together with them, but that's it.
But if I can just add another thing too, because yeah, there could be like a thin line, because sometimes you collaborate, but you have to always consider what's best for your child. I mean, I think you've said that before, Melinda, but it's really important, because a lot of times you're like, oh yeah, I'll do this for you, or I understand it's hard for you. Sorry, there's a plane. I'm outside. And you do it, and then you compromise your intention for your child. So I think, yeah, just learning and being empowered of getting and expressing the needs of your child. Always go back to your child, because it can be an emotional, scary, all types of emotions are invoked when you're discussing the needs of your kid. So.
And they only know what they know. The professionals know what they know. They know what they recommend. They know what their boss told them to say. 9 times out of 10, maybe that 10th one, not so much, but 9 times out of 10, there's a lot of respect for every family that stands up for what their kid needs. If they don't do it in an aggressive, I always want to be mad at you manner, but in a, this is my child and I'm sorry, but I'm going to say no. They're going to have respect for you. Or 7 years later, they're going to say, you know what? That was the best thing you could have ever done. I was mad at you when you did it, but now I see you did the right thing. That can happen too. And it has, I've seen it. So you can only do what you need to do for your child. Politely and collaboratively. Say no. Anyone else want to share?
So
yeah.
Just to follow up to what you just said, because one of my fears in saying no, because I'm brand new to this, is that the school district offered speech, I say no, and they're not going to offer it again. Like,
oh, don't worry about that. Speech therapist is always offer speech.
Okay.
If a speech therapist doesn't offer speech, then you really don't need it. They're not going to not offer it next year because you said no last year.
What if I'm like, I want speech, but I want it through John Tracy? Because I hadn't thought of doing that. We could ask for that.
Yep,
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Cool.
Especially because in your situation, the speech therapists are working with the oral kids and the TC kids. So they're not the same as the John Tracy folks. They're not going to, naturally, they're not going to stop using the visuals because they also work with the signing kids.
I guess I'm a little worried that John Tracy is going to, I don't know if they're going to be, they seem a little anxious about Faith's speech, because I can't understand her most of the time. And then they see her, full time. And they're like, yeah, we need to clean up her speech, is like the phrase they use.
As long as it comes through listening and speech production and not fixing the articulators, go back to her hearing age. And I know she's really, really good. I know she's super successful. So maybe it's time. Maybe you look at that chart and you go, yeah, it is time. There's some, but through listening and through acoustic highlighting.
So the SLPs would do it that way. They would use ABT.
I hope the ones at John Tracy would do it that way. And if they didn't, I hope they have a good reason that they can explain to you.
I think because we have a speech production goal, which I'm kind of thinking like maybe we shouldn't have had one. But it sounds like T and G and K, and I guess it's pretty hard.
Through acoustic highlighting, T and G and K, T, G, K. Not through looking, you can't see them, T, G, K. So through acoustic highlighting and all the strategies, they should know. In my opinion.
And her listening stage is not even 1 yet. not even 1 year yet.
So like, is it time to fix it or time to hear it?
I guess I'm just, as the parent, anxious with her being late identified too, late diagnosed. I'm like, I don't want it to be too late. to,
Oh.
fix her articulation.
I
so.
promise you it's not too late. Promise you. I promise. I don't make a lot of promises. Anyone who knows me knows I'm like, I can't promise anything, but I'll do my best. I promise you it's not too late. It's about the follow-up.
So it's not too late, but it could be too early in her case.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Lauren, I saw that you took your camera on and did you want to share, or I don't want to put you on the spot, but I don't want to ignore you either. Okay, maybe not. Does anyone else want to share or ask a question tonight?
I'm interested in hearing maybe from whomever wants to share, like what is one nugget that you took from this? One of the nuggets that I took from is, of course, the power of saying no, and then also choose quality over quantity. That's one of the nuggets that I took.
Thank you, Gina.
I'll share. I think that I need to be less scared of saying no. I mean, if I had had this conversation before those assessments and the bombardment of what I needed to do for them, that I would have not had as much anxiety. I mean, so I learned that I will be okay with saying no politely in the future.
Thank you, Danielle. Lauren, I see you again.
Sorry, I'm at work, so I'm like in between things.
All good.
Yeah, no, saying no is hard, I think. And trying to keep those relationships. I don't know, it's a balancing act, and I think we're all working on it, but I think we have you've met some of the folks on the team. I think they're all very nice and good people, but I don't know. Yeah, it's a tough thing to kind of navigate through, and I'm still trying to find my voice and feel I think it's the confidence in my voice that I'm still trying to kind of find.
Sure.
And that's a little bit harder to know when to kind of put your foot down, when to be flexible.
Without sharing any of your personal information, may I just share a little nugget of what you've recently said no to? Is that okay with you?
Sure. Yeah, please.
Because I think you did a big no to the no. Is she was denied, and
I had the mic on the wrong side. Sorry.
I just said you did a big no to the no because you were denied an IEP last year. And we're like, oh, no, start over. You will start over. You will assess, and we will have a meeting. They tried to say no, 504 only. No. You must give us an assessment plan because this request has been written. You must give us an assessment plan now. Then they tried to tell you no, and we said no to the no. Had the IEP, they were still going to tell you no.
Yes.
So you have recently said a big no to all the no's and got your child their IEP.
Yes. It's been a big success for our family. So I think, and great thanks to you and your team. But yeah, it's been a long road. And I guess like the other thing too is
and being made to feel guilty along the way. And so a lot of us on this call are made to feel guilty, are made to feel pressured. And so that's why this topic was so important.
Yeah, no, and definitely like Pearl, my daughter, she is doing well academically. And so they've been kind of like laying their hat on that she doesn't need services because she's doing well academically. And so me not knowing that, not understanding as an entering kinder parent, I was like, oh, I guess if that's the baseline, okay. And then realizing through self-education that that's really not the benchmark, going back to the table and being like, no, we need to revisit this topic.
And I forgot to say that. You can say no to grades being the benchmark. Grades are not the benchmark when your child has hearing loss. Access is the benchmark.
Yeah.
Do they have
and access? I didn't know that, right? I didn't know what I didn't know. And so it's been a big learning curve processing through that. She's in second grade now. So for the folks, we're kinder to second now.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anyone else have a nugget like Gina asked?
I am still trying to find the confidence in my voice, but that's why I have Melinda and Gina helping me say no. And my big takeaway from this call tonight is putting the child's needs first. Whatever the child needs is what I need to remember, because I've been caught off guard, like, oh, what's going to be more convenient for me? What about Kyle? I tend to get stuck in that. Think of us as a whole, but it should be the child's needs to help drive the decision.
Great takeaway. Thank you. All right, my friends, this has been wonderful. I'm going to let you all go. Have your Friday evening. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. If I don't talk to you for some reason, happy Thanksgiving. And any suggestions for topics, requests for topics, let me know.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
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 Oh, wait. I'm trying to stop the recording.